Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL wire site that covers your Arizona Cardinals. With me is my co-host, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, the SB Nation site that covers the Arizona Cardinals, and also one of the hosts of the original Draft Breakdown podcast. Seth, we're on episode 541, and we're recording Tuesday night, and so I'm actually gonna make sure I post this tonight because we do have the schedule release, and that is kind of the bulk of what we're doing in this show. Seth, are you excited for the schedule release?
I mean, it's always good because it's content and we can, have conversations about it. But for the most part, I mean, the bigger thing is who you play. And we've known, since January who they're going to play. So just enjoy this and see, when they catch these teams. It's so hard though, because of, the attrition each season that is the NFL, right? Like, how are you going to get to and through the season? And so with that, yeah, it's super interesting. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I'm more interested in when the marquee games are for the rest of the NFL season and stuff like that, as opposed to just Cardinals related stuff.
Yeah. But before we do that, we know we talked about him last week, Zay Jones, and apologies if you were expecting a Thursday show. It just wasn't things weren't going right. So yeah. So sorry, no Thursday show last week, but not that there was much to talk about. We did mention Zay Jones last week as a possibility that the Cardinals would be signing, and he has officially been signed. Signed a 1-year deal worth up to $4.25 million. Other than those terms, it's not known. We don't know exactly what he is going to make. How much of that's guaranteed, how much is up front. But we do know that they had to up the ante. They had to put it over the top to get him away from the Chiefs, which tells me when the terms come out, some fans probably won't be happy, because if they had to outbid the Chiefs, it was either for playing time, so it's either for money, or incentives with more opportunity to play to hit those incentives. Is basically why I see it, because why would you choose the Cardinals over the Chiefs? It's only because of money or only because of the promise of more playing time?
Yeah, or the combination of the two, right? So it's a little bit more money. It's probably a little easier to crack the rotation. It's just an interesting dynamic to work through, because you look at what the Cardinals have on their roster and you see that, they've definitely addressed the wide receiver position, but before signing Zay Jones, I mean, their number 1, number 2, and number 3 receivers combined had less yards than in their career than Jones did in 2022, right? So it's like you can't. So it's not
automatically he is the most. He's the most successful receiver, the most productive receiver on their team, period, in the NFL.
Yeah, and so that's just how it goes, right? And so you look at it from that perspective and you say, hey, this is what you do in order to find a way to get, to be more competitive. And you want it to be based on earning, his position, and that he continues to be a good player. And you and I've talked about it off there, right? So, outside of the mental health stuff in his, I think, 3rd year, right, where he missed some games, he was relatively healthy. I mean, 16 games with Las Vegas, 17 games with Las Vegas, and then signs the, medium contract with Jax, plays in 16 games. So he missed 1 game in 22. And has his most productive season. I mean, 82 catches, 800 23 yards, 5 touchdowns. So it's, it's a good situation. He comes back and he's just injury riddled last year, 9 games, but his snap production went from 86% to 73%. His on-field production plummeted. And so you just look at it and you go, okay, this is a guy that is either going to give them, the potential to be a solid 2-3 receiver, or this is a guy that is completely washed. And there's nothing wrong with that. And, we'll see what everything looks like once the contract itself comes out. But for the most part, you look at this and you say, this is a low risk and I would say medium reward. Like the risk is super low. If he doesn't make the roster, it's probably going to be $1.5 million or less of guaranteed money, and I would wager probably less, right? And
you'd think, yeah.
And if he makes the roster, if he makes the roster, it means they feel like he's one of the top 3 or 4 receivers on the team, and can give the Cardinals some juice. So, we can look at last year's, and it's funny because last year's numbers, they basically showed the same exact percentage as the year before. So, if you double his playing time, you get, despite the, like I said, the 13% drop in snaps played, the amount of snaps in the slot and then amount of snaps out wide are virtually identical. So in that,
and that's what I want to talk about is, now that he is a Cardinal, how do we see him used? I believe, and this is going to be bad news for those Greg Dortch fans, don't expect Greg Dortch to be the main guy in the slot. He's now wide receiver 4 again, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you were waiting for a breakout season from Greg Dortch, I would temper your expectations. And one of the things I looked at is his snap counts. Now, he played basically, now last year it was less, but basically the ratio is the same. He's basically a starting receiver. He was a starting receiver in Jacksonville, and so he was a top 2 guy. He was playing a lot of snaps. But
yeah,
it's basically a little more than 2 to 1 of his snaps are in the slot. So he plays a lot outside, but when they go nickel, guess what? He slides inside, and that gives the Cardinals lots of versatility, because now you've got like, especially size-wise. Look at the size. You can see 6'2", you've got 6'3", Michael Wilson, you got 6'3", 6'4", Marvin Harrison. Harrison can play on inside and out. And so Dortch, who is a slot-only guy, it's going to be interesting to see the role or what role he ends up carving out, because he's going to have to carve out a role to beat out one of these guys. Not that he won't have the opportunity to play, since Michael Wilson has been injured frequently in his career, dating back to college. Zay Jones was injured a lot, was hurt a lot last year. So Dortch will probably have his opportunity, but I think we need to go into this season, at least this part of the offseason, expecting Jones to be one of their top 3 guys. If your starting 11 package would be James Conner and Trey McBride, with Marv and Michael Wilson and Zay Jones in some formation. And that's an upgrade, honestly. You can't say that having Zay Jones as your number 3 is not better than having Greg Dortch as your number 3.
Well, and that's the thing, is if you get 22 Zay, it is. If you get even 21 Zay, it's probably a slight upgrade. But from there, it becomes a question of, like, how, like you said, how healthy is he? And he's got to be healthy. And that's the hardest thing with this, is that, you've got Dortch and you've got Marvin Harrison, who throughout their careers have been healthy. Michael Wilson has not, and like we're saying, Zay Jones is a 29-year-old coming off knee, PCL, meniscus, and hamstring issues. That, so is it a situation where he's just washed at this point, or is it a situation where they can get something out of him? So I think, like I said, I'm all for the move. Just continue to build a talent pool that is diverse and that gives you options. And the other thing is this, right? You look at it, and you just mentioned it: 6'3", 6'3", 6'2", all
6'4", Trey McBride, 6'2",
yeah.
James. They are giants. Their skill players are giants, and with 5'10", Kyler Murray.
Well, and the big thing is, no pun intended, is that gives them a lot of options in the red zone, right? Like they have a lot of size matchup advantages in the red zone that are hard to compete with. And it goes, like you said, all the way through the lineup now. And so that's a big thing. And if Dortch is your wide receiver 4, that's not a negative thing towards Dortch at all. He
becomes gadget guy. He's the gadget player now.
And like you said, between Zay and Michael Wilson, you expect that he'll probably see 35 to 45% of the snaps if Zay comes in healthy. And then obviously that's the key to this whole situation. So we'll see how it all goes from here. But for the most part, I think it's a mostly innocuous signing at this point, not because he's bad or good. I'm just indifferent until we see him, back on the field and if he's healthy or not.
Yeah. Coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web, we're going to move to the next segment, talking about the NFL schedule release. Only what are the parts we're looking at? We'll make some predictions afterwards, but right now let's look at what are the things like with the schedule. What are we looking at? That's coming next on Rise of Sierra. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Time to talk about the NFL schedule release. We don't know any of the Cardinals stuff yet. As of Tuesday night, we haven't had any of those really leaked. That those things will come out as other teams. Like if there's one thing that we never get scoop. We never get any scoops about the Cardinals schedule unless there's a reporter for another team that scoops something about their schedule. I don't know how it is that they manage to do it on their lock and key, but they give us nothing. But I mean, for me, schedule release is just okay. It's official. We know who they're playing, and now it's just when they play. Although I will say this, there is something to the idea of looking at the schedule and when you play them. Obviously, I think number one you look at is how many primetime games will they get. Seth, how many primetime games do you think they're going to get?
Just looking at it and real quick, we'll go through it. The home games: Bears, Lions, Patriots, Jets, Commanders, Chargers, and then obviously NFC West. Away games: Packers, Vikings, Dolphins, Bills, Panthers, NFC West. From there, okay, so you look at it. The Bears is an intriguing one that I could see getting Thursday night, right? Like,
yeah, that would make sense.
Lions.
Like also, I mean, Panthers could be because you got young Bryce Young, you've got Kyler Murray. There's lots of little kind of intriguing things. You've got the Bills with their the Hail Murray rematch.
Yeah, and then the Lions, obviously one of the favorites in the NFC. The Jets is an interesting one because do they get a ton of primetime games, or are they a little more cautious with
they get week one.
Them? Well,
they get week one Monday Night Football against the 49ers.
But that's because they almost know for a fact that Aaron Rodgers will be there, right? So like,
unless he plays 6 snaps again.
So you've got that. So, you look at it, I think I would come into the season saying 2.
That's what I'm thinking. I think
17 games. I think they'll get a Thursday night football game. And then
do you think it'll be a Sunday night or a Monday night game?
Probably a Monday night game, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I would tend to agree that that's probably it. Something interesting that could happen. there is the wrinkle in the fact that Christmas is on a Wednesday and the NFL wants 2 games on Wednesday, which means they're going to treat it like a Thursday game and have some teams playing on Saturday the 21st. So 2 Saturday games after the college football season's over. They start to fill the other days of the week. And so, and it looks like kind of what's been suggested is that it will be a division that has 2 consecutive weeks in weeks, what is it, 16, 17 or 15, 16?
Yeah, I think it's 15, 16.
And have divisional games that way where, say, it would be all 4 of the NFC West teams playing on Saturday and then again on Wednesday, which is a viable possibility. And obviously, those will be nationally televised, even though they might not be prime time. The Saturday games probably might not, but you might have a late afternoon. So like I guess it's almost prime time for that sense. But I do think 2 is kind of what we could likely expect. I think they are promising enough that with Kyler Murray back, that they're going to. I think that things are going to go their way just a little bit more with the schedule. I think they'll have an earlier bye than they did last year. I think they will be given some favors. We almost kind of suggested last year that the league was punishing the Cardinals for things that were going on in the organization quietly.
Right, exactly. So now you look at it, you've got, a clean slate. You've got guys running a tight ship so far. So now it's just about figuring this out and seeing how it falls, right? So I think the 2, like you said, the 2 primetime games make sense. And that's to start the season. Remember, they do flex things. So
yeah.
if they're able, if they're good, they could have 3 or 4. If they're bad, they could just have the 1 and not get flexed. And so that's going to be, I think, the biggest thing that we'll see from this is that what the NFL thinks of Arizona, because I think people are starting to appreciate Monty and Jonathan and kind of the new regime, but the proof is in the pudding, and the NFL isn't going to just make these decisions lightly, right? They're going to come out with let's see how this all works out and go from there. So we'll see. But I think like you said, starts with two primetime games, and we'll see, where and when. And I'm most interested in who.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get an intriguing young matchup Thursday night game that they're going to do, and then you're going to get a middle of the season
make it people watch Cardinals Panthers. You're gonna watch Cardinals Panthers, guys, and you're gonna like it.
Yeah, so we'll see how that all goes from there, but it'll be interesting. That's what's intriguing about the schedule, right? We know who they play. It's just how it all breaks down, and you look at the away games. Green Bay, Minnesota, Miami, Buffalo, Carolina. Are they all going to be 10 a.m. starts? Like, how's that going to work out? So all of that's, stuff that we'll see as it comes to fruition. So,
yeah. And if we're looking at as well, one thing we know, week 17 on the road, they will be on the road week 17. They always are. That's Fiesta Bowl time. Week 18, they tend to be at home. So I think they'll finish at home again because they're going to be on the road in week 17. But do you think they're going to be open at home or up in the road? I still think they're probably in open on the road status with this team.
Yeah, I would think so. I think that's where they'll open up on the road, and then they'll usually get their 2 games at home in September. So, that's how we've seen it a lot lately. I don't know though. So we'll see, we'll see how it works out. But so far you've got to like, the opportunities that they are going to have.
Yeah. If we're looking at this thing, let's kind of go through it. Would you rather face them earlier in the season or later for whatever reason? So division games I'm going to cross out because they will be playing division games throughout the schedule. So, but
Yeah.
let's look at the the Bears. Would you rather them play them earlier or later in the season?
You know, one of the things that you like is to catch teams before they really hit their groove. And I think with Caleb Williams, it's going to be intriguing to see. It's going to be intriguing to see when he gets going. So I think I'd rather see them early in the season.
Yes, I would agree. Lions, for me, don't care. I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah.
Patriots have a new quarterback, a rookie.
Again, another team that I'd love to catch early. Yeah, get these guys early. The one caveat is obviously if they're like what's it called? If they end up being awful, right?
Yeah.
Like but that's the thing, you can't go into it.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And we expect players to get better. Here's the things for the Jets. You know what I would rather play the Jets?
Or late.
You know why?
Because injuries.
Injuries, absolutely. They have a bunch of players that have Tyron Smith, Mike Williams. Those guys are injury have had an injury history, and I believe that you're going to have a greater likely, and especially it's a home game, so if you play them in December, no big deal. You're playing them in December, no big deal, because you don't have to travel to New Jersey to do it.
Right. If that game was in New Jersey, you want that game mid-October.
No later than October, honestly.
Yeah, maybe Halloween time at the latest, but you want that game early.
Yeah. They've got the Chargers and the Commanders at home. I don't think it matters, other than it would be nice because they've got the new head coach in Jim Harbaugh. New coaching staffs, it's nice to get them early, like first half. I'm not saying Chargers, I don't care if it's like September, but I want to see them first half of the season rather than second half when that defense has kind of figured things out.
Right, exactly. So what's going to be interesting, though, is a lot of these away games that they do have, specifically Green Bay and Buffalo, you do want to see those potentially earlier. And typically what the NFL will do is they'll give them what should be a nice weather game, right? And then one that is going to be brutal, like November. And then, if the weather gods just shine on them, it is what it is. But like, I can see that happening. Can you not? That like Green Bay, Buffalo, one's going to be
in December. One of those is going to be in December.
Right. So one will be October, one will be December. And it's like, let's just hope that they catch the December one and it's not, -13 with 20 inches of snow.
Commanders at home, with Jaden Daniels there. Early would be kind of nice, although if he's going to get hurt, and I don't wish a injury on Jaden Daniels, but we do think that durability might be an issue for him.
Right. It is a concern with his.
Like it's just like Anthony Richardson last year, just like that.
Right. And he's infinitely leaner than Anthony.
Yes, he is. You talked about honestly, Vikings.
Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They got a rookie quarterback, but they've got so much talent around him that it kind of is a wash for me, because even if J.J. McCarthy is struggling, even Sam Darnold isn't a bad option. I mean, it's not a good option, but he's not a bad option. My guess, so Miami, I don't care, because you don't have the, you don't know, like guys are going to get hurt at some point, but it'll be warm in Miami in September.
Yeah, as long as it's not wet.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the biggest thing that you look at, right?
That, honestly, I would not be surprised if the Cardinals opened the season in Miami. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and that would be an interesting start to the season, right? Because they're going to be a very hyped team. It's going to be a huge test for this defense. And I was actually talking to some buddies about it today, about how much emphasis the Cardinals have put on stopping the run.
And they face Mike McDaniel's incredibly good run scheme.
And not just that, but they're obviously incredibly dynamic and athletic passing scheme. So it'll be interesting to start there, because that could honestly be one of those games that's, that we saw a lot last season, that ends up being, 38 to 24. And you're like, this team sucks. And then you're like, oh no, that's just a really, really good, that's just a really, really good Miami offense that, the Cardinals aren't up to snuff yet on defense. And that's okay. Like you can still have work to do. You're not going to come out and be, the Ray Lewis Ravens, right? Like, so we'll see how it works out, but I like this. I like this overall.
So the Cardinals, now, do you think they end up playing an international game? They could. They could be the road team against Minnesota or Carolina. They could end up in London. They could end up in Munich, Germany.
Yeah, I'd love to know where the information's coming from. Did we get a text that they're not going to Germany, or am I making that up?
I haven't heard that.
Okay. It's just interesting because then I got a text that it's not going to be Germany. And I'm just like, unless that's coming from, and that's Minnesota that's going to Germany, right?
No, Panthers. Panthers in
Panthers.
Germany,
Oh,
Vikings in London.
okay. So unless that's coming from a Panthers person who knows, because I mean, a lot of people that like are team-based media, so like probably like Arizona Sports probably has the schedule so they can, get it posted at 5 p.m. tomorrow and there's no delay, where Jess and I have to root around and get,
Yes.
and get information. So
yeah, it's magic. It's a magic system. How the Darren or Jaron Urban or Zach or back when it was any of the other guys, how they would publish on the story that has all the details of the signing, maybe even a quote, and the press release goes out at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be that way, but still.
No, I know. So yeah, so it's just interesting. So we'll see how it goes. But what would you think? Like, because that would be a huge, I mean, obviously an away game is an away game is an away game, but that's a hugely different away game, right?
Yeah, that's a different beast, and they've not shown up to the last two international games. It was ugly. It was ugly in Mexico. It was ugly in Los Angeles, in London when they played the Rams. Oof. Although I don't know. So Is there anything else that I like to kind of look at in clusters? Like, do they open at home? Do they end at home? How many home games do they have in the final four? Is it going to be 1, 2, or 3? Obviously, are they going to be over? Are they going to be loaded in? Well, maybe not necessarily January, but in December. What does their schedule look like? Is it 2 home games, 1 home game, 3 home games? Are they going to have their cluster of home games late in the year, or will they have them earlier? And then, of course, the bye week. I think I get the vibe this year that it'll probably be something more central to the season this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to be really intriguing with this whole thing is, do they are, like you said, punished? I don't know about punished, right, last year, but there's definitely some interesting scheduling going on last year, right? Like, to start out with an away game against Washington, and then the schedule that they got right after that, where it's the Giants, and let's be honest, they should have beat the Giants, the Cowboys, which they did win, but then to have the 49ers, a healthy Bengals team at the time, and then Rams Seahawks on the road. And I know those aren't far games, but Rams Seahawks, and then have to host the Ravens, then go to Cleveland. Like, it was a really front heavy schedule.
Yeah.
And so this year, and we knew that going in, and you look at it after Kyler comes back and the 3 wins, and that was kind of how we predicted it would go, right? So now you look at it and you go, okay, is it going to be a little more balanced? The problem is this season's really unknown with who they're facing. I mean, you've got so many teams with rookies, so many teams that are coming out with new guys and new players, and it's just a, we talked about it, new coaches, then they basically face every new quarterback. We have no idea what to expect with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Carolina was legitimately the worst team in the NFL last year. So it's like there's just so many questions that have to be answered this entire and so when we say is it front loaded, are we going to see Lions, Niners, Packers, the playoff teams, the teams that were the Dolphins, Bills, like, is that going to be wedged together that could make for a long season, or do those teams get spread out? And, in the end, does it matter?
Yeah. Coming next on the Rise of Zero podcast, Special of Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's wrap things up and make our schedule prediction, which will sound stupid when you're going to hear this on Wednesday or later, and the schedule will come out Wednesday night. But we're doing it. That's coming next on Rise of Zero. We're back on the Rise of Zero podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web, taking a look at what we think is going to happen on the schedule this year. Let's kind of take a look at it. How do you have first? Well, first off, do you have them on the home or on the road?
I think, I'm just looking at last year, and I know, again, last year was kind of a fluky one, but I think they start out on the road again. I think they started on the road, and if it's like last year, it'll be East Coast. And so, like you said, I'm hoping it's not Miami. I would love for it to be Buffalo, but I think, is Buffalo already scheduled? No, they're not. So, but hopefully it's one of those East Coast teams early, preferably Green Bay, Buffalo, or Carolina, right? Like, get that out of the way, potential late season bad weather type of game. Like you said, when they play Miami, you'd almost rather it be later than September, right? Because it could still be muggy and nasty down there. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think they start out on the road, and I'm gonna guess it's Carolina week 1.
I'm gonna pick Miami. I'm going to pick a week 1 Miami road game to start things off. Now, honestly, I'm picking them to have 3 of their first games on the road, which is kind of a rough thing, but hey, that's kind of how that goes. So I have them returning home in week 2 facing Washington. I'm going to have them facing Washington in week 2, which is kind of nice. You get Cliff Kingsbury, the Cliff Kingsbury reunion, Jaden Daniels back in Arizona. Lots of nice storylines there. But yeah, and low key, that might be an interesting week, Thursday night game too.
Yeah, it could be. But they've already announced that Thursday night game.
Oh, that in week 2?
Yeah, Buffalo, Miami, because that's the one that opens the Amazon season.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want Arizona, Washington opening the season.
Because remember, technically, the Kansas City Baltimore game, that's not a Thursday night football game. So, so I think you're right. I think it's going to be an East Coast team, because just kind of, again, playing off it last year. I'm going to stay though, and I'm going to say that it ends up being the Detroit Lions in week 2.
Ooh, that's a good one. On week 3, I have them on the road, nailing down their first division game, playing in Seattle.
Okay, I'm going to go with on the road, but this one I'm going to go with the Rams.
Okay. All right, week 4, also on the road. I have them in Green Bay.
Week 4, let's see. So they went 2-2 last year in terms of home road. So I'm going to give them another home game. And I think that could be, because that's kind of right as the season, I don't want to say slows down, right? But starts to get a little week 4. So I think that could potentially be the Thursday night Bears game.
Ooh. All right, week 4, I have them also on the road
You mean
facing
week 5?
week 5. Oh, okay. We're back. Did I say we had week 4
Yeah,
already
yeah.
with
You had
Packers?
you had Packers week 4.
Yes. So Packers week 4 on the road, coming back home on the. I'm gonna have them playing 2 home games in a row after that, with the second of their divisional games with the Rams at home. We get Matthew Stafford in town.
So I'll have them going back to back home games, and I think that's when they get. I'm going to go with the Pats on that one.
Okay. Okay, we're looking at week 6, also at home. So for me, they end up with an even 3-3 schedule in the first 6. It's just they're going to start 3 out of the 4 at home, and I'm going to have them hosting the Jets in week 6.
So week 6, I'm going to go road game on that one, and I think that is their Buffalo game. So they get New England at home, and then they get Buffalo on the road in early October.
Nice, nice. And then I'm going to go with week 7 bye. So
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm curious when they get their bye this year because, like you said before, it's not always the best, right? I think week 7 is another road game. Okay, so let's see. I've got, and that one is going to be Minnesota.
ooh, ooh, nice. Okay, we'll go to week 8. They open on the road, but it'll be a nice off the bye. They'll be on the road against the 49ers off of their bye week, which would be as ideal a time as you can do that.
Yeah, and week 8, I'm gonna have them coming back home. So back-to-back road games, an East Coast and then a Midwest type-ish game, and I think they're gonna come home and they'll get the Niners at home. So I'm in agreement with you about the opponent. I think it'll be a home game against the Niners. So
Okay, give me just a second. I'm I'm building the schedule right now, and I'm trying to make sure I don't double up on teams.
yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Let me see. Oh, I'm missing. I'm missing the Chargers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they have 8 home games this year, right? They have
They have 9 this year.
they have 9. Okay. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So that's where my missing one is, and so that's where I'm going to put that right there. Okay, Chargers. All right. So week 9 at home against the Patriots.
Yeah, and so week 9, I'm going away, and that's going to be the Seattle game this year.
Week 10 on the road, Thursday night football. Everyone has to watch the Cardinals and the Panthers.
I love that. I love the force of it and everything like that.
And it doesn't say it won't be a bad game, but if you want to put a game on the schedule that's people have to watch, that's the one to do. Even though Amazon's not going to be thrilled about it, but maybe it'll be a barn burner.
Right. Maybe it'll be fun, and that's kind of what the hope is, right? Is that it's a fun game, and they're able to. Both teams are better than what was expected or is expected of them, right? So that was week 9, you said?
Week 10.
Week 10, sorry. So week 10 is when I have their bye.
Okay. And then we go to week 11. I have them at home against the Bears in that week.
So they are on the road. I'm just double checking my math here. So in Seattle. So then I have them coming back home, and they're going to take on the Los Angeles Chargers.
Ooh.
Yeah, you get the Chargers and the Rams this year, so we got to pay attention to which LA team we're talking about.
Yes. Week 12, I have them back on the road. This is when they go to Minnesota or maybe London to face Minnesota.
Yeah, so I have the Minnesota game earlier. I'm going to give them another home game because they do have 9, so it's always off a little bit, and I think that that's when they'll take on the Commanders.
Okay. Week 13. So I actually have this is an unbalanced schedule. The Cardinals are going to finish 4 of their last 6 games on the road, and this is going to be the first of 2 games in a row at home. Week 13 at home against the Chargers.
And then I have them on the road. So this would be week 13. Yep. There's your Green Bay Packers game.
Ooh. And
so
then,
early December, that's kind of what they've done to them in the past, right? Like force them to play a winter Wonderland game, not anything crazy. So week 13 last year was December 3rd. So that's about where I see that going.
And then week 14, they're going to face their 3 divisional teams in the final 5 games. They get their home game against Seattle in week 14. Who do you have?
I have them. So let's see. I've got Rams and Niners at home. So that'll be at the, because they usually play Niners this later. So I'm going to go at the Rams here. Yeah. So at the Rams week 14.
Week 15, Monday Night Football on the road against the Bills.
Actually, no, because that would be 3 in a row on the road. And I don't think they're going to do that to him. Let me go back real quick. Sorry. So that would be then we've already got Niners at home. So that would be Seattle at home then.
And yeah, so I said week 15, December game in Buffalo, Monday Night Football. And you get it's the Hail Murray revenge game for Buffalo.
Yeah, and I like that idea. So like I said, I think they're going to do one or the other. I think you and I agree on that. The Packers or the Bills is going to be in December, right? We saw that last year. They gave them, and last year they, again, were kind of mean to them, and they gave them the Steelers, Bears, and Eagles in December away. So it's, I don't think it's unrealistic to see that here. So I got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they got 2 road games left. I think that they're going to split those up. We know week 17 will be on the road. So I'll go, that's at the Rams game, right? Or let's see here. I actually shouldn't have done the Seahawks last week or that last one. It should have been the Patriots. I'm sorry. The Seahawks are the last home game. We know that already. I mean,
yeah.
We don't know that.
After we go through, we'll run it back through again.
Okay. Yeah. So week 14 is Patriots. Then week 15 is at the Rams.
Okay. Week 16, I'm going to have them at home against Detroit.
And that's the Christmas-ish game time. So that'll be an interesting one to see where they're at, and how the NFL plays that. I think the NFL is going to be hopeful that the New York Jets are healthy, and that'll be a holiday-ish game.
And week 17 on the road. We both know they'll be on the road. I'll have them having the Cardinals close out their season with 2 divisional games on the road against the Rams and at home against the 49ers. And how do you have them closing out the season?
Yeah, and I've got it going at 49ers and then home against the Seahawks.
There you go. And running back down, Seth, give us yours from week 1 through 18.
Yeah, so Carolina opens things up early, and then they get Detroit in week 2. And then last year they gave them some balances, and stuff. So I'm not sure how this will go in this vicinity. But I think that we'll see them get a looking at my schedule. Actually, why don't you go real quick while I
Sure.
fix that while I correct that mistake.
All right. So from week 1 to 18 this is my schedule. We start off on the road against the Miami Dolphins, at home against the Commanders. Week 3 on the road against the Seahawks, followed by on the road against the Green Bay Packers. 3 road games to start off the season. In the first 4, week 5 home against the Rams, week 6 home against the Jets with a week 7 bye. They come off their bye on the road in week 8 against the 49ers, returning home in week 9 to face the Pats. They'll have a short week on the road in week 10 to take on the Panthers on Thursday night, returning home after the mini bye to play the Chicago Bears, then going on the road in week 12 to face the Vikings, perhaps in London. Week 13, home against the Chargers. Week 14, home against the Seahawks. Week 15, road game, Monday Night Football, Buffalo Bills. Home in Week 16 against the Detroit Lions. On the road against the Rams in Week 17. Closing it out at home against the 49ers.
And I'm missing a game. I can't figure out where I'm missing. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm missing a home game. The Patriots. Got to remember the Patriots, right? Yep. They're easy to forget right now. So at Carolina, then home in against Detroit, and then home against the Patriots. Then I've got them back-to-back road games. That early season Buffalo game, which is nice. The NFL every once in a while is nice to them. And then you've got at Minnesota. From there, you've got back-to-back divisional home games against Los Angeles and San Francisco. Dang it. That's where it was. And then at Seattle. And then I think I flipped them. Yeah, I flipped the Patriots and Bears. So, sorry, the Bears were supposed to be week 3. That's their Thursday night game. Remember I said you start to you're starting to fade a little bit. And then Patriots week 9. And then the bye week 10, come out. They get the Seahawks and Commanders in back-to-back weeks. And then they go.
Seahawks on the road?
At home. It's because they had the at Seahawks right before the bye.
Okay.
So, and then Seahawks at home, Commanders at home, at Green Bay in December, because, again, they're going to get one of those games, right? At Miami in December, thankfully. And then they have LA, New York, San Francisco, and in everything with I had Seattle 3 times. That's right. I took Seattle out. You're right. I apologize, Jess. I'm a mess right now. I've got too many notes on here. So take out Washington coming out of the bye. That's why I had Seattle. You were right about that, Jess. I apologize. You tried to help me too. Look at you. So they finish up with Seattle at home, as they typically do.
Week 10 bye, week home, 11 home Commanders. What's 12?
The Green Bay, at Miami, and then back-to-back weeks against LA, one at home, the Chargers, one at the Rams, and then the Jets, then at San Francisco, that typical week 17 road game, and then home versus Seahawks.
Okay, so from top to bottom, at Carolina, home against Detroit, home against the Bears, road against the Buffaloes, Bills, road Vikings, home Rams, home Niners, at Seattle, home Pats, week 10 bye, home Commanders, at Green Bay, at Miami, home Chargers, road Rams, Jets at home, road Niners, home Seahawks.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Too many LA teams this year.
Hey, and it won't even matter because our predictions will be dumb.
But they're fun. That's the whole point.
And that will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Seared podcast. Mr. Cardinals Talk on the web. We'll be back again to react Thursday night, so you'll probably hear it on Friday. Reacting to the new schedule, and maybe we'll do some stupid early predictions. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. This is the Rise Up Seared podcast. Thanks for listening as always.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.